Somaliland is the most admirable nation you have probably never heard of. But to understand why it is so admirable, first we have to understand how Somaliland came to be. The Somali people have been living in the Horn of Africa for thousands of years, making nations of their own. And in the 1800s, the Somali people were conquered by the Italian and the British. But after World War II, these two nations decided to unite their colonies and to give them independence, creating a single Somali state. But accidentally, Britain gave a bunch of Somaliland to Ethiopia. They realized their mistake and they tried to buy that land back and give it to the Somali people. But Ethiopia was having none of it. No T-Baxics, they say. So yeah, colonialism. One way or another, the Somali nation was created, without many of the usual mistakes of border making of the time. For example, they didn't divide people to have access to a river, they didn't group enemies together. They created a homogeneous nation. People with a same culture, a same language, a same sense of identity. So, what could go wrong? A lot of things, as it turned out. Somalia was doing okay at first. They even decided to take back all that land that Ethiopia had taken from them. And they wrote their constitution in such a way that it would be easy to incorporate all that new territory into the nation. Spoiler alert, they were overconfident. Because all of this democracy and progress ended abruptly after just 9 years, when Somalia's second president, Ali Sherkan, was killed by his own bodyguard. And the very next day, the General Mohammed Siad Barre took control of the government, abolishing all authority in the country but his own. General Barre would turn out to be a cruel leader, but he was an effective soldier. And he continued with the plans of taking all the land that Ethiopia had taken from them. They started war with Ethiopia, and they won battle after battle. They took 90% of the territory they wanted, and it seemed as if Ethiopia would have to sign the peace and surrender all that land. But then, Deus Ex Machina happened when, and I am not making this up, 20,000 Cuban soldiers, led by Russian generals, came to aid the communist government of Ethiopia at the time. The highly trained Cuban soldiers, along with the resources of Russia, were just too much for the Somali army, who quickly retreated and signed the peace, ending the dreams of uniting all Somali people for the foreseeable future. Back in Somalia, people were hating their military government. Because for one, it was oppressive. How oppressive, you say? Well, it wasn't just oppressive in that there was no freedom of speech. It was oppressive also in the fact that it was also illegal for groups of more than 4 people to be in the street. So, it would have been legal for Green Day to walk through Somalia, but if the Beatles had wanted to do it, they would have been arrested. Although John was dead at the time, so it was legal for them. Couple this with a lot of corruption, but just like a whole bunch of corruption. Like, people didn't use bribes just to get ahead of others. No, people needed to use bribes for anything. You want a license? You need to bribe me. You want to be a new house? You have to bribe. Everything required bribes. So what did people do under this oppressive government? Well, they turned to the only other source of authority in the country, the clan leaders. See, in Somalia, everyone belongs to a huge family, a clan, that was founded by an ancestor long time ago. Some of these clans were so organized and so powerful that they were even kingdoms in the past. So the clan leaders were the only people who could oppose the government. Seeing the clan leaders opposing his authority, General Barre did what any other dictator would have done: a genocide. General Barre killed hundreds of thousands of members of the Isaac clan and tens of thousands of members of other clans in what is now known the Somali genocide. So naturally, there was a civil war by many groups backed by Ethiopia, who, if you ask me, they were trying to weaken an enemy. And they did, because the Barre government was deposed by the clans. And now is where Somaliland appears. Many clan leaders from the north, the part that was ruled by the British, decided that they were cool on their own, that they would form their own nation, and they would call it Somaliland. We will check on them later, but let's see what happened in the rest of the country. In the rest of the country there was a power vacuum, with a bunch of generals, clan leaders and terrorists fighting with each other, killing each other, so that no one had enough control to claim to rule Somalia. It got so bad that the internationally recognized president could only rule parts of the capital, Mogadishu. And even to this day, Somalia is considered a weak state, meaning that it exists but only by the hair of its ass. Now let's see what happened in the north. In the north, two new countries appeared, Somaliland and Puntland. And let's talk a little about Puntland. Puntland is newer than Somaliland. While Somaliland formed right after Barre was deposed, Puntland took a few years to form, when a bunch of people got together and decided that the civil war was awful and that they wanted peace. Puntland has been more authoritarian than Somaliland. Their first president wanted to stay in power and they had a brief civil war, which almost broke the country. Also, Puntland claims to be the true Somalia and they want to unify Somalia under their government. Puntland has managed to preserve peace and order within its borders, but they had accomplished that with force, and that is not as admirable as Somaliland. Because let's talk about Somaliland. Let's finally see what is so admirable about it. When the clan leaders from the north formed Somaliland, they saw that one of the problems of Somalia was that the government clashed against the clan system. So they decided to make the clan system part of the government. While most nations have a bicameral government, meaning that they have an upper house and a lower house, Somaliland has a tricameral system, meaning that they have an upper house and two lower houses. One of the lower houses is called the House of Representatives, and the other is called the House of Elders, made of clan leaders, with the clans also having a little representation in the upper camera. Now, the House of Representatives can overrule the decisions of the House of Elders, but only if they have a 2/3 majority. If they don't, then the House of Elders can make the choices. Which I think is actually a great idea, because it ensures that the will of the people will prevail, but that if the people cannot agree with each other, then other power structures have to make the decisions. They also have a political system that allows for 3 parties, aiming to give more weight in politics to political ideologies than to ethnic identity. And the most important thing is that, crucially, Somaliland has managed to have peaceful elections and peaceful transfer of power since its creation, which, given their circumstances, is nothing short of a miracle. All of this democracy and peace has allowed the government to give basic services like water and electricity to most of its 4 million citizens. It has also allowed for companies to thrive, like Telesom, which gives telephone services to pretty much all Somaliland, some parts of Poland, and even some parts of Somalia. But the best evidence of how stable Somaliland is that they were the first territory of what was once Somalia to have banks after the start of the Civil War. Sadly, despite all of this, Somaliland is not internationally recognized as a nation, and its money is only worth within its territory. And they also have to deal with many separatist movements, which are clearly financed by Poland or Ethiopia. So, is Somaliland perfect? Of course not. It is still poor, largely uneducated, it has a whole host of problems, but they have managed to stay peaceful and organized despite all of that, which is the first step to actually solving all those problems. And they have managed to do that in the face of overwhelming odds. And I, for one, admire that. So, yeah.